Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of the Top Cut Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. My name is Sunny. I am here with my co-host.
Hello.
And before we get too far in, we of course want to thank all of our wonderful patrons. So a huge thank you to Austin Johnson, Salix, Kane Martin, Damian Zink, Gate Guardian Support, HZH Cyber, Marshawn Jones, Mr. Herbies, Witchcrafter Main 2022, Zyphorus, Zephyrus, AD, Aaron Gardner, Anthony Leela, Appaloosa is a Floodgate, Brandon, Dank Nugs, Dangalong, D's Nuts, haha, got him. I read that for the first time yesterday on the Patreon episode, and
Got him.
listen, I understand that it only costs $1 a month to make me say stupid things, but come on, people. Gotta be more creative than this. Invoke Fart, Kevin Hugh, Mountain Man, Owen Alvarado, Pig, Rudolph, Sneaky Links, Virtually Savers Our World, What Does Pot of Greed Do, Chris Myers, Max C Solves Combo, Old Man Red, Ray Powell, Rhoda to 3 Please, and Slaking It Up. Thank you all so much for your continued support. If you want to become a Patreon, the link is in the description down below. And of course, if you want to support the channel at no extra cost to you, be sure to check out our TCG Player affiliate link in the description down below. And other than that, let's go ahead and get on into the main content today. We, of course, have a very, very special guest with us, as I'm sure you already know by the title of the episode. We have the one, the only Chris Lofton with Lofton TCG. What is up, dude?
Not much, man. Just settling back in for a few more hours before I leave for Mexico.
You are really on the grind. I know you were at YCS Charlotte. And then, is that right? Yeah?
Absolutely.
And then you just got back from Bogota, Colombia, and had, I would say, okay results there. Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just a little bit okay, yeah.
Yeah. Above average.
No complaints.
Yeah. And then I think this weekend you're flying to Guadalajara, Mexico for the YCS, right?
I am. I am.
We stay grinding. That's what I like to hear. So, of course, as I'm sure you saw again in either the description or the episode title, Chris outplayed everybody. He outplayed everybody on his way to the victory at YCS Bogota. And why don't you tell us, we're going to get on into the tournament itself, but I would love to talk just for a moment about the actual, your backstory before we get too far on in. So I'm kind of wondering a little bit about how you got into the game, how you actually made a name for yourself in the game, your growth, your progression, because this is not your first top. This is not the first time you've ever done well at an event. So I was hoping you could give us a little bit more about your backstory and yourself, and then how you became to be, a sponsored pro Yu-Gi-Oh player, you know?
Right. I played the game like everybody else when I was a kid, just here and there. I was always the best player in my school. Like, it was just like one of those things, you know, when you start to play, you realize like you're good at it, and then you start wanting to play at tournaments and stuff, and you just leave school. You know, kids just didn't understand the concept of the game when you were little. Like, I remember I was playing like an Exodio deck with like Sandgan and Witch of the Black Forest, and my friends were always like, they were the players that were like, how did you get all, that's crazy, like there's no way, you can't do that, like there's no way you got all 5 pieces. And I'm like, I'm just reading the cards and just playing the cards. I don't know, man.
That's how you won the event. You were reading the cards.
And you know what? That basically explains the opposite of my event. I'll get into that.
Okay.
So then I stopped playing when I got into high school. You know, I was just honestly too embarrassed to tell friends that I played, and I just stopped going to locals and stuff. And I started back up probably the year after I graduated, and I remember I went to Gen Con in Indy, and my first like actual event, I think I was just walking around the venue, and I remember buying a Gores and like a Cyber Dinosaur, and I entered this event, and I was thinking like, these cards are pretty good. I went 0-3 and realized my cards just weren't good enough. Like, I'd say that was my first tournament. Like, there was no regional in between. There was no, like, play testing with friends even. It was just like I just jumped back in and just went, and I got absolutely demolished. And I was like, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. So what do I got to do to figure that out?
Right, of course. So is this when Gen Con was still an SJC, or is this when it's a YCS?
It was that year. It was the last year it was an SJC.
Oh my goodness.
Last
I've
year-
heard so many stories about that event from other pro players, just the various SJCs at Gen Con every year. I've heard it was always like the event.
Absolutely. And then fast forward to 2012, because I think it was 2010. I don't remember. I just, my memory in that is very awful. But
Yeah.
2012, we had Gen Con, the Gen Con YCS. I think it was like for the last year, and I managed to take Bubble Beats. I played one Bubble Man and Heroes, and it was a wind up format, and I got top 32. And I remember attacking for game in top 32, and like that's when I found out what my opponent was playing. Like I killed his wind up rat because like game one he just didn't play any cards, picked his cards up. Game two didn't play any cards, and I'm attacking over his monster, and it was a wind up rat. Then I attacked for game. I was like, cool. That was my first event, my first major event that I topped, because at that point I had like maybe like 7 or 8 regional top 8s, all with heroes and like frog monarchs, and then I got into top 16. It was actually a feature match online where it was game 3. I was playing against Steven Bazell, and he was playing Chaos Dragons. I won game 1. He won game 1. I won game 2, and then I don't know. He was going first game 3, and he goes set 1 pass. I'm thinking, not what he was doing. This like rounds. Like, all right, summon Neos Alias, 19 set 5 pass. And he just in phase flips decree.
Oh,
Like, I see. MST's at 1, Gemini Sparks at 2 in my deck, and I've got Torrential set and like skill drain and no Gemini Stark, no MST, and he just proceeds to summon 5 monsters. Like the end photo was like BLS, Chaos Dragon, just 5 boss monsters, and I'm like, you know what? Had that Gemini Spark, this Torrential would have been really cool. So that knocked me out of my top 16, and that was like the last time I topped for a while. I stopped playing from between like 2012 and like 2016 for maybe 2 years, and I came back, and I think it was maybe like 2 years after I came back. Yeah, because it was in 2018. I went to YCS Niagara Falls, and I played Altergeist. I was having a lot of success at regionals with Altergeist, and I took it there. It was Thunder Dragon for me. It was the weekend that Thunder Dragons were released. And so Altergeist had a pretty good matchup against Thunder Dragons. So I played that, and I remember I squeezed into top 32. I didn't squeeze. I think it was like 20-something. But I got into top 32 and I had to play John Wilkin. He's a kid from Canada, and he's really good at the game too. And he's playing Goki. And all I remember is it was game 3, and I had a pretty good opening board. I was feeling pretty good. And this kid had 2 cards left in his hand, and I had a trap left and a multi-faker left in hand. I'm thinking like it's 2 cards, I got a trap, and I got to use a silk. Like I'm about to move on to top 16 pretty easy. I got to flip my trap, and one of his last cards in his hand was a red reboot, and so that ended my tournament there. And I was like, all right, cool, want to win a mat? Can't believe that. I'm nice. So there was that, and then in between there was a lot of I was grinding regional points or worlds points. I was, for the 2019 season, I was top 10 for regional points all the way up until the last 2 months of it. I just didn't go to the last 7 regionals that I could have went to. I stopped. Like nobody in my area wanted to like keep driving. I always had to drive, and I just lost motivation to like do a double regional weekend, like 3 more weekends in a row. And so I went down to like 22nd or 24th in Worlds Points. So I missed the Worlds Points playoff for Nationals. So I didn't get to go to that. So that was unfortunate, but I'm definitely now more motivated to play the game. And then, skip forward. What do we have? COVID for the last 2 years. And then I went to YCS Charlotte. Oh, sorry. Let me talk a little bit about the last year. I think what got me back into the game, Denver had a case tournament event out there at Rocky Mountain Games. And I went out there. Yeah, cool. I went for a 3v3. I played with DeBlesson Wilson and Frank Nicola, and I played Altergeist. And that was a mistake to play Altergeist. again. I just didn't have any. I just didn't have any cards. And I was like, I kind of want to play again, so let's see. And then it was I think it was like October, and then January comes around, and I get a hold of some Despia cards, and I'm starting to think like, I'm reading these cards. They're pretty good. Like I don't know how they're good, but like their effects are good. And then the brain started turning, and there was a PPG in Tampa at TCG Con, and I took Invoke Dogmatica Despia down there, thinking like, they're fusions. This is pretty cool. I'm going to play some fusions. I get down there, and I think it's like round 5, and I'm starting to realize like, oh, I think my deck's pretty good. Like I don't know. I think it's pretty good. And then it was the weekend Brave was released. The Brave engine was released, and I'm sitting there. Because I didn't read any of the cards. I just didn't read them. And I think it was like round 5. I get a wind on board, and somebody goes activate rights. I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. Just do whatever. And he adds Draco back, and I go, okay, yeah, whatever. And he activates it. And, yeah, okay. And he goes, activate effect. I go, what's the effect? He goes, it bounces a card on the field. I was like, what do you mean? Stop. And it bounce your window. And I'm sitting there looking at my hand. I've got like nothing else committed to the field. I was like, last time I was pretty sure if you put wind on board, you won the game. Like if you don't draw, like you win the game. So what's going on here? So I realized Window just got power crap, so I had to keep playing with this deck for the rest of the event. And I'm like, I am not in a good position here. I end day 1, I think X1, and made it to top cut. So top 16, I played Kamal, and I barely managed to beat him. Like when I say barely, I won by 300 life points in time. And Bless Masquerade, I guess. And then top eight came around. I had to play Hani, and I think the match was 7 minutes. He beat me in 7 minutes. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Jeez.
I have no idea what I'm doing here. This is exactly. I was like, I shouldn't even been here, honestly. So I was at that time because I think that was the first event that anybody played Despia at for 2022. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, I think this deck just gets better. I think I learned a lot about the deck, started messing around with the cards. I dropped the Invoke engine. And then over the next month or so, I went to Arizona. I played a couple of events. There was a 3v3 in Tennessee that I went to, and I played. I played Despia, but I went X1 in my bracket, and my teammates, I think went X1 or X2, like in a combination in the Swiss, and we all got in the top cut, and they lost their top 8 match. I won mine. I'm just sitting here thinking like, these cards are way too good and nobody's playing them. Why are they not playing them? Just why are they not playing them? And around that time, the structure deck gets announced, and I'm going through reading these cards. I rebranded Fusion, and I'm like,
yo,
my time has come.
What are they about to do? What? Because when did this come out? So I'm looking at the timeline, and they announced some YCSs, and I'm like, no way. Like, what is about to happen here? Charlotte gets announced, and Bogota gets announced, and Guadalajara gets announced. And I'm like, well, I'm obviously going to North Carolina. I don't even care if I have to do well. Like, I haven't seen half of my friends in the game for 2 years. I'm going. It doesn't matter. And there's nothing I've been playing more than Despia, so I'm going to play Despia, knowing that with Bogota 2 weeks after that. I have been telling people on my Twitter, on the Despia Facebook group, the people at my locals, I said, mark my words, I promise you, the first weekend Despia is full power after we get the structure deck, I will win that event. I promise you. Fast forward after, I didn't even day 2 at North Carolina. I did not day 2. And then, I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I didn't expect to do well. I wanted to do well. Everybody wants to do well, but I didn't expect it. And it's time for Bogota. I had Eldritch cards in my Despia deck. I had 9 traps, 2 lords, and 2 two curse eldens. And I am in the hotel room with Hani, Patrick Hoban, Christian Urena, Raphael Nevin. I'm just in this room. We're just play testing. I'm on Discord, and Pack is like Christian is like streaming just me and Hani play testing. And I am getting bodied. I am just absolutely getting bodied. And I'm like thinking, I'm not going to have a good event, am I? Like, this is not going to be fun. All right, cool. I thought I figured something out. I didn't figure something out. Here we are. I look at Patrick and them, and I'm I'm not going to play these cards. I'm just not going to play these cards. I don't know what I'm going to play, but I'm not going to play these cards. I'm going to play my Despia cards. I just don't know what the other like 12 cards in my deck are going to be.
Yeah.
Registration is a deck lists are due at 9:45 a.m. on Saturday. I am downstairs with Christian filling out my deck list at 9:25 a.m. I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to build this deck. I am sitting here like Crosstout's got to be good right now, right? He's like, yeah, I think so. I mean, if you play a lot of mirror matches, and I hope I do. It's the weekend of the release. And then I'm at 40 cards, and I'm like, 41, sure. I put an Albion on the Shrouded Dragon. It's not until I've got a play-by-play, honestly, of all my rounds on my phone here. So give me 1 second, because
absolutely.
When it clicked for me, it was just like the funniest thing ever. So round 1, I sat down. I played a Brave Despia, and I lost the die roll. So I played 14 matches the whole weekend. I won 4 dice rolls.
Jeez,
tried to go second
like that.
Yeah. So my first round opponent was playing Brave Despia, and he prosperity game 1, like turn 1, and I had Ash, and I think I ashed his Branded Fusion, and then he tactics, and he drew 2. Maybe like 45 seconds later, I'm kind of looking, I'm like, why does he have so much advantage on me? Like, what? And I go, wait. You can't draw cards. You played Prosperity. And he just looks, and so we have a language barrier. Every opponent except for one opponent spoke very, very little English. And he just looks at me and he goes, I concede. Let's go to game 2. Okay, interesting. Because I called a judge trying to like repair the game state or whatever, but he said you conceded. And I'm like, oh, there's no need for a penalty. I'm not going to get you a penalty. You just said you conceded. Like it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So I ended up 2-0ing him. I move on to round 2. I played another Brave Despia. I 2-0 that opponent. Going on to round 3, I play against Brave ABC, and I am like, I don't remember what the pieces do, and they're all in Spanish. And luckily, I just downloaded Neuron because I think it was game 1. I just attacked all of his pieces in the wrong order because I'm like, I don't remember what these cards do, but I know there's a correct order to kill 3 of these. So yeah. I had to pull up Neuron, and that wasn't an issue after that. I lost game 1, and then I won game 2 and 3. Because I'm sitting here like, there's no way I'm beating the mirror match and losing to ABC, right? Like that just can't happen. It doesn't make any sense right now. And then round 4. So round 5 is when it clicked. But round 4, Patrick Hoban and I, the night before, were talking about, we want to play Nadir Servant. Like, I want to send Albion. And I want to search, the Dogmatic. I want to search 2 hand traps. I want to search something. So, yeah. But the best part of the Nadir package in this deck is playing Maximus. And me and him almost at the same time, we just go, not manning Maximus, though. I'm not going to blind first Maximus anybody right now, not with Brave or not with Despia. I'm not going to do that. Right. And we're like, yeah, we'll just cite it. That'd be easy. Like game 2, game 3, we'll just put them in and resolve Maximus. Round 4, I play against Invoked Dogmatica. And he starts his turn, which I lost the die roll on this one too. He starts his turn with normal summon Ash. And I'm like, that's awesome unless you E-Telly, because I like that. And he goes, make Almirage. All right, cool. Getting a good feel of what his deck is. And then he makes Secure Gardener, the Link 1 that goes in the extra round for Invoked. I was like, okay, where's this going? He banishes Almirage. So, okay, what's going on? And he summons Maximus. And I go, you're not. Like, you're not going to do this.
No.
And he activates the effect. And I was like,
let's go.
No hesitation. Just threw my cards in the graveyard. Didn't wait for him. I was like, those are the 2. Gets crazy. He sends Titanclad and Omega. And he goes, in phase. Special summon, Ecclesia effect, special or search, Fluor, pass. And I'll go, you have no sets and like 3 cards in hand. Resolve Albion, resolve Tri-Brigade, Glory Dragon. He goes, what do those do? What do you mean, what do those do? What? You have a Titanclad. Maybe does what Titanclad does, but like for... He's like, I've never seen these cards. And go, okay. Draw for turn. I play Patchwork. I start my turn with 9 cards in my hand. Like,
oh my god!
Yeah, you lose. Like this, you just lose. It was crazy. 2-0'd him super fast.
That's crazy.
Round 5 happens, and I win game 1. It was a Striker DPE Brave. And I am not a fan of playing against strikers. It's like one of those decks. So I played a lot of striker. I think I didn't do well in a YCS with them, but I think I had like 6 regional top 8s with them here in the Midwest. And I was like, I feel like I knew the deck enough. But it was always the deck that's like, where did you get this advantage from? Like, what happened? How did we like, you had 3 cards and now you have 11. I don't understand. Like, I feel like letting you resolve engage twice should not give you that much advantage. And it does. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So it wasn't until after I won game 1, he Mystic Mind me. And then he put a monster on board. And I had 2 monsters on board. But he finally put a Hayate on board to attack. And I go, I'm going to activate Branded in red, add a Despia monster back. And I'm going to make Chimera. So now we both have 1 monster, and I'm popping 2 cards that you control. So I popped his back row, and I popped his Mystic Mine. And like very next turn, he just picked his cards up, and like we went to game 2, and I was like, oh, wow. I was like, there's no way it was that easy, right? There's no way. And it was that easy. And it was then I was like, I haven't drawn a dead hand going second all day. And going first, I built my deck to go first. I'm like, is my deck accidentally really good? Like... I submitted this deck list 20 minutes before the event. I had no idea that I was going to be playing it like this. I'm like, I think I'm doing okay right now. I don't know. I was like, I tried to keep calm the whole weekend. I'm just sitting here thinking like, this is going too well. Like, what's about to happen? Like, what's about to happen? Like, I'm about to get to the last 2 rounds for the day because it was round 7, day 1. I'm like, I'm about to lose 2, aren't I? No, I play another Brave Despia mirror, 2-0 that. I lost the die roll, and like it was at that point I'm like, okay, so my deck just beats the mirror, like just hands down. Doesn't matter if I go first, doesn't matter if I go second. I just crush the mirror. Doesn't matter if you have Griffin. Like some opponents had like Griffin, Token, Brandon in a red set, Mirror Jade, and I'm just blowing through this board. Like didn't even matter. And I'm like, that's pretty good. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
So then round 7. Is when the trouble for me starts for the event. I was being very nitpicky on this round, but I promised myself going to a different country I wasn't going to let like the players bully me or like the judge staff or the language berry bully me or set me aside. So round 7 I play against Prank Kids and I won the die roll. I won the die roll in this one. Game 1 I kind of set up an average board. Wasn't anything crazy. He has a Faithful Adventure on board. He summons Prank Kid. And before we sat down for the match, he put on his Google Translate, said, before we move on from our plays, can we please make sure we have concise agreements on, like, before we make the next play? And I was like, oh, okay, cool, sure. I shook his hand, like, everything was fine. His very first play consisted of him, like, playing Faithful Adventure, summoning a Prank Kid, linking it away, and he points, he doesn't say fancies. He points to his Meow Meow, and he points to his adventure, and he goes chain 1, chain 2 as Faithful Adventure chain 2, and I go chain 1, chain 2. He goes chain 1, chain 2. I said, so Meow Meow 1, Faithful 2. He goes yes, and I go sure. I know Meow Meow doesn't have an on summon effect. I'm like sure. So what that entails in my mind is that you have just made an illegal activation as a player. But, more importantly, you have not declared your fansies in the graveyard. If you would have said fansy and accidentally pointed to your Meow Meow, cool, whatever. But I asked you 3 times, and you did not point to your fansy, you did not say fansy, which means you're not getting the effect. You're not. So he goes to summon a Prank Kid, and I go, you can't do that. And he goes, why not? And I said, you didn't say you were summoning fansy. And he said, well, I point here, and I go, that's not how the card works. That doesn't do anything. We've agreed on this chain link that you've established, and the only thing that can establish here is Faithful Adventure. You resolve that, you didn't say that. So I called the judge comes over, and my opponent calls the judge by his first name. And I'm like, okay, cool. That judge tells me, oh, well, we just rewind it back. And I'm like, so you're going to reward him for forgetting his card effect or not playing his cards right. You're just going to go back and say, oh, he can go back and do it. So I appeal it. Head judge comes over. My opponent calls the head judge by his first name. I'm like, okay, so you live here and you just know everybody here. Okay, this is good for me. This would not fly anywhere else. And right. The head judge is like, well, yeah, I mean, it just happened. You know, that happens. Accidents happen. I go, you're absolutely right. Accidents do happen. It's called a misplay. You don't take them back. That's not how the game works. I ended up getting a unsportsmanlike conduct, and the ruling of that was on the back of the sheet after I lost that match was, didn't agree with my ruling. is what
Wow.
they wrote in the red pen. And I go, oh, okay, so that's how the event's gonna go. Awesome, cool. So that was my last round on day one. I was heated, but Hani and Christian actually talked me down off of that. Like, hey man, you can lose one, you can even lose two, but just don't let it define the rest of your tournament, man. Like you got this. And so I woke up for day two, I get in there, and I play. My round day is Eldritch, and I lost a die roll against that deck. That was not fun. He starts with a Curse Eldlin and goes Red Ice Fusion. Oh, come on. Don't have Ash. And so I have to stare at this Dragoon. And I have done everything on my turn to try to get over this. He has 2 sets and a Dragoon, and I'm thinking like I'm nice. I establish a Mirror Jade. And I'm thinking, why did you let me get this far? Like, what's going on here? Like, what's one of these back rows? So then I activate Branded Lost, and he chains Super Poly. And I'm thinking like, of course, he had the Super Poly set. Okay. Takes away 2 monsters, make a Starving Venom. And I'm thinking, why did he like let me get that far? I just don't understand. And then I went to go make another play because I had to search like a Fallen of Albaz, and Fallen of Albaz doesn't target, and he's already Dragoon. So I'm like, Fallen of Albaz, effect, take your Dragoon. And he goes, Skill Drain. I was like, so your sets were Skill Drain, Super Poly. Got it. So I wasn't getting away with this. Okay.
Yeesh.
I needed a Super Poly, and it sucks because after that game 1, my next card was Super Poly after I drew 3 cards that turn. I'm like, oh, okay. Game 2, I get him with Red Reboot. He just picks his cards up and goes to Game 3. And then Game 3, he opens Eldlin, Red Ice Fusion again, and I had to Ash for it. I had double Ash, actually. And he goes, set 1, pass. I was like, that's not very good for a trap deck. And I have a Lubra and a Branded Fusion, so I searched Branded Lost, played Branded Lost, played Branded Fusion. The deck doesn't play hand traps, so I was like, cards, gimme. So...
Which variant of Eldritch was it? Was it more of it was just like the 30 trap variant, or was it
traps? Yeah, 30 trap cards.
Okay, so it wasn't like a Cyberse or anything weird like that.
And he just kind of lost after that. Like he couldn't do anything.
Right.
So it was a handshake. And so that one felt easy in hindsight. And we go into round 9. I'm in top cut. Like literally, I'm X1 going to the last round. If you lose the last round in top cut or in the Swiss, you're in. You're like a low 20, and you're just in as X2. Yeah. My buddy.
I saw the dog on. I was like, oh my goodness, I love dogs.
Yeah, he just goes sits in his cage sometime. I don't know why. Just a little brat.
Feels cozy,
I play against Brave Despia again, and I lost the die roll. And here I'm starting to think like, okay, I've got top cut after this. Like, what's going on here? Like, I've played a lot of Brave. I tied with this guy. This guy, somebody told me, and I don't remember the name of this guy. I think he's done some things down there in South America, but I remember a couple of my friends were like, hey, watch out, he cheats. He's just a known, like, he's cheated a couple times. And I'm like, whatever. I don't let people, I will not let people cheat me as far as stacking or whatever goes. Because I pay very close attention to that stuff. I pay very close attention. And so, it's like, I'm not worried about that. I got game 1 super fast, and game 2 he's up in life, and it was an end phase of my turn, and he outed my Mirror Jade, and so I activated the effect, and then his end phase, he's like fusion summoning. I think he branded in red or something, but he ended up making an illegal fusion summon. Like, he tried to use his Mirror Jade to make another Mirror Jade, and Mirror Jade states you can only have one Mirror Jade on the board at a time. So it's kind of like that rivalry clause, like you can't tribute a monster for, a different type of thing. So I told him, you can't make that. It was like right away, you couldn't make that. Then he tries to make Masquerade. Well, the monsters he shuffled in weren't Despia monsters. I said, that takes a Despia monster, you can't make that. And he goes, oh, sorry. And he goes, make Albion. And I'm like, Albion takes a light. You can't make that card. He has a translator, a judge. He's a translator next to him. He's a judge, too. The judge is just standing here watching this. And I'm like,
dude.
Judge, these are illegal summons. He's done it 3 times. What are you doing? Do the thing that you're supposed to do. And he finally makes a Lubellion. So his ending board was like Dragocelia, Mirror Jade, and a Lubellion. And I go pass, and I go Mirror Jade, and he just sends all of his cards to the graveyard. He has a branded opening in the graveyard, which means he could have protected all 3 of his fusion monsters. I'm just sitting there like, What? So I just watched you illegally fusion summon 3 times to send your monsters to the graveyard. That doesn't even make sense. What is this? And when I told the judge, I was like, Judge, like you're not going to do anything. He said, well, he made the right summon. And I go, well, I'm going to appeal that. And he goes, no, he made the right summon. So I'm like, so I can't appeal. Like, no, you can't appeal. And I'm like, so I've got denied an appeal for a head judge, which at every event you have the right to appeal to a head judge or any ruling. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll remember that. I promise you I'll remember that. I promise you. So we ended up tying. I'm down to life. I actually would have scooped earlier, but he let his monsters get nuked, so I thought I could play through it. And I just couldn't. I think he drew Branded Fusion for turn. I was like, okay, cool, sweet. Top Cut comes around. Gosh, dude, every round was just like, hey, if I win this round, I'm winning the event. And because here's why. Round 9, Top Cut. I play all Brave Despia until the finals, by the way. Top 32. I lose the die roll, of course, obviously. And we get down to game 3. That's all this really matters. We get into game 3 and he super polys me not once but twice. So I have been super polyed twice in game 3. And I'm sitting here like, that's just not good. But he messed up twice because the turn before he last super polyed me, he made a Verte and he went to go send Branded Fusion and an Albaz. He only plays one Albaz and I stuck him on the Bellion so he didn't get to shuffle his first Albaz and first and only Albaz back. So he literally goes, oh, I can't resolve this. Pass. And I was like, oh, cool. And he had another fusion monster on board. I think it was a Drago Bastalia or something. And I draw for turn, I make a play or whatever, and I out his Drago Bastalia, and I just pass. And he draws Super Poly for turn. And it doesn't register with me until after that round. I'm like, wait a minute. You didn't have a legal target to send off of Verte, but you drew Super Poly? And the only monsters on board were your monsters. You had 2 darks. So I'm sitting here like, did you just cheat me and just didn't want to super poly your board for Starving Venom? And I ended up talking to him after the round, and he's like, I don't play Starving Venom. I actually couldn't even make anything. I was like, okay, cool, whatever, that's fine. But
I'd be like that.
Yeah, when he drew for turn, I had Lubellion on board, Quarteris on board, and I think a Mirror Jade on board. And he ends up super polying me, and I'm at 2,500. And I'm like, cool. I played Proskinion this weekend. If I play Super Poly, I'm going to play Proskinion. It takes a Despia monster, a light monster, and a dark monster. So what my opponent should have done was taken my Lubellion, taken his Despia monster, and taken my Mirror Jade and just made Proskinion, attacked over Quarteris, and it would have been 3,200 because Quarteris has Proskinion has a burn effect for like whatever my monster's attack or defense was highest, or whatever one was highest. So it's 25-25. So I take 25 burn damage and then 700 for the attack difference. That's 3,200. That's game. He doesn't play Proskinion. He doesn't play the card.
So he's not playing Starving Venom. He's not playing Proskinion. What is this extra deck full of?
I have no idea. I was just like, I luckily didn't lose this round. I win the event. I'm just gonna win this event. I'm just gonna win out. I'm gonna win this event. I'm feeling lucky today.
Yeah.
Top 16, I play the guy that I played in round 9 who illegally fusion summoned against me. And round 9, he asked me, I forgot to add this. This is kind of important. I'm sitting down, and he comes and sits down. We're in the VIP section. He goes, do you mind scooting? And I'm translating. He was saying this in Spanish, but he's like, do you mind scooting over from the table? I'm like, oh, I'm already comfortable. I don't want to scoot over. Like, I just don't want to. He wanted to be more centered to the table, and I'm like, I've got enough room. Like, we've got enough room. I'm fine. I'm already comfortable. So then he's telling the judge back and forth or whatever. The judge is like, you need to scoot over. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I'll scoot over. Fine, I'll scoot over. And that was round 9. So we're in Top Cut, top 16. And he asks me, we have the whole table to ourselves, by the way. Now we have the whole table to ourselves. I haven't gotten up from my top 32, and we're fine. Like, I could have put, I probably could have put another fourth of my mat on the end, and it would have then touched the table. So I'm like, I got elbow room. We're the only people here. I'm fine. And so he's like, hey, I'm moving to the middle of the table. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And the judge is like, what? And I'm not going to do that. I actually I compromised with you earlier today, and I'm just not going to move now. I'm not going to. So I'm now arguing with the judges about if I'm going to move or not. And I'm like, I'm comfortable. Like, I don't want to move. I was nice earlier, and I feel like if we're playing twice, you compromise. It's your turn to compromise. Like, maybe that's crazy of me to think of, but I'm not moving.
It seems fair to me.
I get another unsportsmanlike conduct because I didn't want to move over. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Dude sits down, we start playing, and I was like, you know what, dude, I don't have a problem with you, I just have a problem with the judge staff this weekend. I just have a problem with the judge staff. The judge comes back over and said, what did you say? And said, I have a problem with the judge staff this weekend. So we finished game one, I won game one, and then the judge and the head judge pull me aside, game two, and I'm thinking like, all right, what's going on? I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure your tournament experience like isn't going awful or anything. Like, I feel like you're being a little hostile to us. And I'm like, yeah, honestly, the tournament's fine, but I just don't like the judge staff. Like, I just don't think you guys are doing a very good job. And like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm in your country. Yesterday I had a ruling. You gave me a warning for unsportsmanlike conduct for not agreeing with your ruling because you let a player take it back. He was calling you by your guys' first names, and you're claiming that there are no favoritisms. This guy has a judge translator for him who watched him illegally fusion summon 3 times earlier today, no penalties. And I'm getting unsportsmanlike conducts for not wanting to scoot over. Like, I'm not even talking to my opponent when you're giving me unsportsmanlike conducts. I'm talking to you guys. So, like, it's not even my opponents at this point. And they're like, oh, well, you know, we're very sorry you feel that way, this or that. And I tell them, I said, you know what, I do know a lot of people on the higher up end on Konami. And I'm like, this is my first time at an event. If I don't feel like you guys, I just don't feel like you're upholding Konami policy, honestly. And I will be reporting you guys if I see it happen anymore for the rest of the week. And I promise you I will. And like, we understand. We just, you know, we are glad you're here. You're a guest in our country. And like, we just want you to have a good tournament experience. Like, I shook their hand and said, I'm not going to give you guys any more problems today. I promise. Like, I won't. But if I see any more favoritism go on here, we will have a problem. Because like, the game isn't based off of favoritism. It's just not. You don't get to take stuff back.
Yeah.
He wins game 2 and then game 3. Game 3, this guy ends up going to activate his tragedy from graveyard. We're in the mid game, and he picks his deck up and he looks and he goes, "Oh, no target." And I go, "Oh, no target, huh?" And he goes, "Yeah, no target." And I go, "So did you activated that?" And the judge is standing there, and I go, "Judge." Judge goes, "Yeah." And I go, "He activated his tragedy, but he's not adding anything to his hand." And he goes, "Oh, I just don't have a target in my deck. I don't have any more Despia monsters." And I go, "Well, that's an illegal activation. You can't do that. It's your responsibility to know what cards are in your deck and how your cards work. That's what they announce at every event. I'm holding you to that." We get the head judge to come over, and so I just talked to the head judge 20 minutes ago. The judge essentially upgraded because he had a previous illegal activation in the tournament. So I witnessed him illegally fusion summon 3 times, no penalty, and he had an illegal activation to somebody else. So I'm sitting here like, you've done this like all day. You've been doing this all day. There's no way you haven't been.
Whole tournament.
There's no way you haven't been. So I'm like, so what's going on? And the judge upgrades his warning to a game loss in game 3 of top 16. And I'm like, thank you. That's how it should be. Like, you already had an illegal activation. The next step is an upgraded penalty. That's how it works. The guys, you're saying something in Spanish, and he ends up like showing D-Bear. He's like, "This was game," and I'm like, I showed him like I had Super Poly in hand. I'm like, no, I still don't think I was losing that. So I was like, okay, that was pretty lucky. I'm winning the event. Like, that's just super lucky. I'm just feeling super lucky here. I get to top 8. I play Asala. Asala's a great player. Obviously, like, honestly, an insane player. He just came off of the regional win in LA. It was 10 rounds. He went 10-0, I believe, with Despia.
Yeah, he did.
And I'm playing this guy, and I'm like thinking, I understand that there are better players than me, but at this point, I'm thinking like, I just don't think there's anybody playing the deck better than me right now.
Right.
And I knew I won this because I lost the die roll. He sets Griffin up, and he just goes, Griffin token, set 1 pass. And I'm like, and that's the problem with that engine. Like, you have to choose between making Despia plays or making rights package plays if you don't have the nuts on both.
Right.
So that's why I didn't play. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have to make those difficult decisions in the tournament. Like, especially if I have to go first. I'm blind. I'm like, what's better, Mirror Jade or Griffin? Like, what's going to be better in this situation? But anyway, he passes. I start my turn with a branded loss. He picks my card up to read it, and I go, oh, I've won. Anytime you have to read my card, like, we're playing a mirror match. Anytime you have to read my card, you lose. Like, there's something that you're not understanding. Like, you've been playing the deck for at least a week now because you just came off a 10-0 victory. You started off 7-0 today and then lost your round 8 and 9. you're familiar with the deck, but here I am playing a branded card that came out of the structure deck that you opened, that you took branded fusion from to put into your deck, and you're reading a card from it. And I'm like, all right. He goes, oh, looks like I have to negate that, huh? I go, yeah, you do. And he negates it, and I know the deck doesn't play like that build wasn't playing hand trap, so I had branded fusion, and I just resolve it, and I just break his board, and I put him in an unplayable game state, and he's like, let's just go to game 2. And in game 2, same thing. He goes first, and I just blow him out of the water, break his board. I move on to top 4, and I played, I think his name was Oscar, and I played him day 1, and I 2-0'd him in the mirror match. I went second, and I super polyed him. I opened super poly, so I super polyed him and blew him out there. And then game 2, I drew super poly for my 6th card, and I blew him out there. And he goes, must be nice. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, dude, that was very nice. It was like,
it is nice, yeah.
Very one-sided. I'm not dumb. I'm like, I literally just won because I resolved super poly, but that's why the card's in my deck. That's why I chose to play the card. So I'm playing him in top 4, and he sits down, and I didn't realize he's won 2 UDSs. Or he won UDS in another event or something, if it wasn't 2 UDSs. But he goes, I can't believe I'm about to win my 3rd event. And I look at him and I go, I can't believe you're going to let you do that. And he kind of looks at me and he goes, we got lucky yesterday. And I was like, I don't know, man. He was still kind of reading some of his Despia cards. So I was like, I don't know. I 2-0 him. My opening hand was absolutely, like, my friend Ryan Fletcher was just standing on the sidelines watching this match. I go activate polymerization, send ad libitum, send tragedy to grave, special masquerade. Trigger both of them, special tragedy back, tragedy triggered, search a Luber. A normal Luber, effect search. I search branded in red, and I go set branded a red path. So I didn't even search branded fusion and resolve branded fusion because I had like Bell and I think I either had cross. I had cross out too. So I set cross out too. I go pass. And this guy, and I look at Ryan. I'm thinking like, bro, you don't even beat this board. Like if you go to activate branded fusion, I'm going to cross it out, and I've got my own branded red where I'm just going to nuke your board. Like it doesn't matter. My opponent goes set a monster in defense mode, pass. And at this time, I give the office look. I look at Ryan. I go.
The office look.
And I just go off on this guy, and he just picks his cards up before I even draw for turn. And he goes, "Yeah, you're very nice." And thinking and there's no way anybody for the whole weekend could have even been close to accusing me of stacking, because when I cut decks, this is all I do. That's it.
Yeah.
Because it came down to how much time you actually save by not shuffling somebody's deck. You just give. Right there, they accuse me of anything, and I save time. There's no confusion between anything. That's all I've done. So I'm that's all I got your deck. So this time I'm thinking well, there's no way you're accusing me of cheating. You're just you're being very unlucky. And then I get him game 2 as well. It's almost just as bad. He just opens the Griffin package, and I open full combo again. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I see that Ruben wins and beats Andreas in top 4, and I'm like, dude, Ruben, what the heck, man? We're about to play. We were in the same hotel the night before, and we were just talking about playing in the finals in the hotel room the night before, and we're like, this is crazy. This is the craziest thing I can think of. I just what the heck? We sit down at the table 1. That's what we think that's going to take place. The tables are numbered. It's table 1. We're going to sit down. Judge is like, hey, just don't start. We'll get everything ready for you. So we die roll. I lose the die roll, and we're shuffled up and whatever. We've already cut, but we're not starting. Because to us as a player, don't start means don't draw your 5. Don't play the game.
Right.
So the judge comes over and we tell him and he's like, okay, I need you to move over to this table. We're going to be in the center. And we're like, oh, yeah, we've already cut and shuffled, and we played the die roll. And he goes, I told you not to start. And I go, we didn't play any cards. What do you mean? Oh, yeah, you're not even supposed to die roll. You have to redo the die roll. And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking oh my gosh, I got another chance to win the die roll. He rolls his dice. He rolls a 4, and I'm like, bro, I get to go first in the finals? That's crazy. I roll a 3. And I'm like, I lost 11 die rolls this weekend. Not 10. I lost 11 die rolls.
Like 10 and a half.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, and he's playing Prank Kids, and Prank Kids is I hate playing against that deck because just you rarely get to stop it. It almost always gets to do what it wants to do. But that's not saying like the end board isn't unbeatable, but more often than not they get to their end board. He goes terraforming. I go, okay. He goes, activate Prank Kid place. I've got an ash in my hand, and I'm like, no. Like, and the two reads are, I let you get the monster to your hand, then you activate rights. So then if you activate rights, I'm just stuck under Griffin. My ash is not going to resolve on your kid. So I'm thinking if I just ash this, he doesn't get a kid to his hand. And mathematically speaking, I made the wrong decision because he had to have opened a kid already. So what I was painting in my head was you have 3 copies of Enchantress, 3 copies of Rights. That's 6 cards. If I let you grab a Prank Kid, that's guaranteed Prank Kid. Like I can ash that, and then you just have to be on. I hope you have to already have a Prank Kid. And I was like, pretty sure they play more than 6 Prank Kids. I'm pretty sure. So it's actually more likely for him to have another Prank Kid in hand than having a piece of the Rights package. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. And he goes, search Dropsies. Yeah, that's fine. He goes, normal Dropsies. I was like, okay.
Oh?
And he links it away, makes meow meow, and he goes, activate effect. And I go, shh. He goes, set 1, pass. I was like, no way. I've got Branded Fusion cross out in my hand, and I'm like, bro, yes, awesome. Here it is. So I full combo him. It's unplayable for him after my turn 1. Game 2, he ends up access coding me and putting me out of the game. And then game 3, I break. And I set, I don't remember if I set 2 cards or 1 card. I set 2 cards. I set Summon Limit and another card in pass. And I was like, it's not ideal to have a game 3 in the finals like this. That's not fun. And he summons a kid again, and he makes meow meow, and he goes activate effect, and of the Prank Kid, and I flip Summon Limit, and he goes, cool. So I'm like, no way, this is sticking. Like I get another turn, no way. So I get another turn. And it's not ideal. Like I don't have a way to Branded Fusion, but I do some damage, and I end up passing turn. And nothing's like crazy established, but like it's at a point where like if you don't draw something right now, you will lose. He drew Fusion Destiny off the top, and I'm like, okay, it's looking like we're having a game then. Okay, it's fine, it's cool, whatever. Ends up outing my Summon Limit, does some damage. And ends up like putting access code talker on the board. He put a Griffin in defense mode, needed a rights token. He leaves me alive because he messes up. Like I had Masquerade on the board, and I had a Luber in attack mode. That was all I had with Summon Limit when I passed. And I won that event, that final, because I forgot I had an Aluber in the graveyard. Yeah, like I had a branded opening in the graveyard, but I forgot that I had an Aluber. So like when he access code popped my Masquerade, I was like, I'll protect it with branded opening. And he goes, can I see your graveyard? And I was like, yeah. And he fans it out, and I see my Aluber, and I'm like, oh, I should have just let him pop that. Because then I just special Aluber and turn access code back down to 23, and he can't pop anything anymore. So then he uses the effect to pop it again, and I use the Luber, turn it to 2300. And he goes, attack over with TPE, attack over with rights token, and attack for 23. My hand at this point is Patchwork, Aluber. That's it. All I have. He's got no cards in his hand. That's no set cards. He's got a DPE coming back in my standby phase, a Wandering Griffin in defense mode, and access at 23, and a token with Fateful Adventure and Draco back. No card. Like, that's it. My Patchwork's dead, by the way, because my 2 Edge Imps are in the graveyard. So I'm like, I have a dead card. I have an Aluber in my hand. Draw for turn, draw Branded Fusion. I'm like, okay, but you have an Omni again. It's like, let me figure out how to do this. I have a Tragedy and a Branded Fusion in the graveyard. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to banish Tragedy, set Branded Fusion. And he goes, I'm a DP, pop that. Like, that makes sense. You don't want me to activate it. That makes sense. I go, activate Branded Fusion. He goes, Omni negate that. All right, cool. Normal Aluber. Search my third Branded Fusion. I was like, I literally at this time, I remember I was like, I can't believe I'm about to win this event. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I won. I literally won. But I almost punted it. I almost punted this event. Because in my head, I'm like, I'm going to make Quarterless because he has an access code and a rights token. And the rights token with Fateful Adventure and the Draco back equipped to it means it mandatorily cannot die by battle once. It's a mandatory thing. If you don't get to choose. So I'm like, he's at 37. And I'm like, if I make Quarterless, that's 25 over it. And I'm like, I have a Luber. That's 18 over. That's 38. That's game. And so as I've removed, like I made Lubellion, and then I went to go like shuffle back Fallen of Albaz and a Despia monster to my deck. And I pull them aside and I tell Ruben, I'm like, I'm thinking if this is the right play I want to make, give me 1 second. Like just give me 1 second. And I'm about to put this Quarterless on the board. I'm like, no, that turns my Aluber to 0-2. That's not game. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm about to punt this game back to you. So I just make Mirror Jade, like the regular Mirror Jade. And I'm thinking like, okay, cool. A Mirror Jade attack over for 700 on the access code talker. Inside of the battle phase, Mirror Jade effect, banish your DPE, send Albion. In phase, set Brandon in red. All he has for turn is the rights token, Draco back, and Fateful Adventure, and he drew for turn. And when he's in standby phase, I just, you know what, I was like, it's probably wrong, but I don't care. Flip Brandon in red to bring back Ad Libitum, the regular play. I banished the 2 monsters on my board, the Aluber, the Mirror Jade, and Ad Libitum from my hand, made Chimera, popped his token, popped Fateful Adventure, and then got Mirror Jade back to the board, which means I get 1 more non-targeting banish, and he has 1 card in his hand. And he's just like, shook my hand. And it was like the most surreal feeling ever. We got up, we hugged, like we were just talking about last night how cool it would be just to play a friend in the finals, and like we were there and we did it. So
that's such a surreal feeling, I bet.
Oh, it was crazy because like I literally just remember saying like as I'm doing this play, I'm like I've won the event. Like I don't know. Looking back, I was like I don't even know how I'm winning the event right now, but I'm winning. I have 3 Branded Fusions. I have to win. Like there's no way. So yeah, it was very sappy, just like lots of hugging and just like playing a friend in the finals was so crazy. I walked up, got my trophy, got the pictures taken. I had people like asking me for pictures afterwards and asking me to sign a couple other cards, and I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. I came here like literally for the past month and a half. I've been preaching the first event, Despia's Full Power. I will be winning the event 100%. I'm just going to do it, and I did it. I did it. And I like accidentally did it. Like in hindsight, like I went there with because I also didn't bring my D barriers or DD crows. I wanted to play those. I forgot to bring them, and I'm like, well, I guess
Worked out.
We'll go with summon limit, I guess. Cards, whatever. Like
But I mean,
summon
it also
limit. What's up?
Well, I'll say it also wasn't all luck. There was a lot of skill behind it because you've been playing this deck for so long. You know a lot of the ins and outs that they probably didn't even consider.
Yeah, like when I was playing, it just kind of felt like most games I knew what the rest of the cards in their hands were or could have been before they knew what their end board was going to be. Because I'm like, the way you're playing this, you have to either have this. I'm like, you don't play any hand traps and you ended Griffin token pass. You had to have opened an Aluber. There's just no way you didn't open anything else. So that let me prepare to I know you have a follow up, or the amount of time it took them to make the decision if am I going to summon an Aluber or am I going to activate rights. Like there was a lot that I could read based off of what they did and what they didn't do, and that's definitely I think the reason why I beat all 8 of my mirror matches. Like I just knew the deck better than everybody else. I was the most prepared with the deck, and it was crazy because Hani didn't. I think he played 1 Despia. It was either him and then Christian played 0 Despias. And he built his deck to play against Despia. Like, we were all there. We were playing the same event, but we all played a different tournament.
Yeah, I remember I was watching Hoban's deck profile because he also got top 32. I think he said he only played against like one Despia the entire event. And I was like, Chris said on Twitter that he played against like 9 or 8. I was like, talk about a completely different vibe, you know? So,
Yeah, I'm sick. He actually kept my adventure token. That adventure token he had at the end that was mine. I let him use it, and now he's not going to Mexico, so I don't know when to get that back.
get him to put it in the mail. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I want to take just one quick moment to do an ad read, and we'll come right back to this. But we, of course, want to thank our sponsor, ETB Games in Alexandria, Louisiana. They are your one-stop shop for all of your card game needs. They have everything for Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Digimon. They have singles, sealed products, sleeves, deck boxes, binders, playmats, everything that you need for those games, as well as all of your tabletop games. They have figurines. They have the paint for the figurines. They have the books on them. They have everything that you need. They have a great space to go and play those games, as well as a great space to go and play video games. Be sure to check them out at the link in the description down below. Now, I know that you know the ins and outs of the Despia deck a little bit better than anyone else, I would say. I think that you've just been dedicated to this deck longer than anybody. So we were really hoping to ask you a little bit about some of the things that you did in your build that are maybe a little bit different than what other people were doing, even though I know you threw the list together 20 minutes before the event.
Yeah. So, like, one question that I had kind of popping around my noggin, particularly with what you said earlier about the adventure package. You had said that whenever you decided against it due to, you didn't want to have to decide one or the other with your Despias or the adventure package. Was that, like, the only thing that made you decide against, or was there, like, a couple other thoughts that you're like, everything kind of stacked together? No.
Good question. So I'll preface this with I have tried every version of Despia. Like, I had Eldritch cards in it. I was playing like Damage Juggler in it to send as the light to like a Hat Tricker. Like, I was I used the Brave cards for a little bit. I was just doing absolute everything, and I'm like, what is working the most is playing the deck where cards don't conflict, and so. I looked back at the first big event that I played, the PPG, and I was like, when I played the Invoke Dogmatica, I was like, sometimes my hands just aren't playable. And the game is kind of set up where, like, they give you an archetype, and the archetype's supposed to work with the archetype. Because that's the archetype. All the cards are supposed to work together. So the Brave engine would essentially, if you didn't open Bright's branded opening, you weren't getting your full potential board. Which your full potential board was essentially the regular Despia board plus an Omni-Negate. So to get that Omni-Negate, you have to play 9 more cards in your deck. The 3 Rights, the 3 Princesses, the Dracoback, the Griffin, and the Fateful Adventure. So I'm like, I don't want to play those cards because it's risking bricking. Like, you hear about it all the time. Oh, I opened Griffin this game. Like, oh, I opened Fateful this game. I didn't get the plus.
Dracoback.
I opened Dracoback. And it's like, yeah, you did, and like that's the risk that you run with playing the powerful cards that all kind of search themselves. But like when you open branded opening and Enchantress, that's insane. That's free. Like I get that. That is good. But the chances of opening those 2 cards, like more often than not, doesn't seem viable to me. Like for a long extended tournament. Like, you're playtesting with your friends. Like, this is what it was. You playtest with your friends, and you're practicing for an event. You're like, oh, this is working, man. We've just been playing for, like, 2 hours. Like, I'm opening pretty well. And then you take from that play, and you're like, oh, 2 hours of testing, that was pretty good. You test again for, like, a couple hours and whatever. But that 4 or 5 hours of testing isn't even a half of the event. Like,
right. So
your theory and your practice doesn't even cover all the matches that you have to play at an event. So I'm trying to think like, I want my deck to be as consistent as possible. So the biggest part of the rights package is to stop Ash to let your branded fusion resolve. So I'm like, why would I not? So that takes 9 cards to make sure you put the Omni-Negate on before you play branded fusion. So that also means you're not normal summoning a Luber. You either have to special it or you have to already have branded fusion. So you have to have a very specific amount of cards in your hand to make the combo work to protect against Ash Blossom. And I'm like, that doesn't sound worth it to me. Why would I just not play Cross-Out Designator and 3 Ash Blossom? That's 6 cards, compared to 9 cards that conflict with each other. If I draw Ash every time in every match, it's good. If I draw Cross-Out Designator, it's always good because everybody plays Ash. So I'm going to only stop Ash. And in the mirror match, I got to cross out so many branded in red, so many branded fusions. It was crazy. Like, there was one time some guy went to go establish a Griffin, and I had cross-out set with no Ash. So I'm just like, all right, I'll chain cross-out Designator, call branded fusion. And he was like, oh, so I also just don't get to resolve branded fusion. Like, you use rights, you don't have a normal summon, and you don't get to activate your branded fusion. So your turn's over. Your turn's over.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think for this tournament, I think so. I thought I would be playing a lot of mirror matches, and I did. Like, I got lucky on that. I really did. I think moving forward, it's actually more correct now because I think more people will be playing Despia. I think they will. So I think Crossout Designator is correct, and I don't think the right package is needed. I honestly feel like I proved that case because not only me, but Andres Torres, who got third, did not play DPE. He did not play the rights package. He did not play Dragoon. And I didn't play either of those either. And for us to get
just adding unnecessary bricks hurting your consistency.
I look at DPE and Dragoon as a crutch card, like something to lean on when things go bad. But when things don't go bad, if you know how to play the deck. And I always felt like my hands were always playable at every point in time. The losses that I had, I reflected on each of them, and I didn't get down on myself, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I had every card in my hand that could have made me win that game. I just didn't see it at the time. And that just made me feel like I made the correct calls for the event as far as the deck building goes. And I know I made it like sound like I randomly put my deck together, but like it was like basically a close list that I was playing like 4 days prior and that I modified a couple more cards of. It was something that I definitely already thought about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I was really about to go into the event with no Ash Blossom in my deck, no Crossout, and Eldritch cards in it. Because I was like, oh yeah, I send Eldritch. The thought process with that was, oh, I have a light monster to send off, and then I can make Albion, and then make, like, if I don't want to discard a card from my hand off of Lubellion, I can just banish itself and banish Albaz and just get Mirror Jade. And I have a Golden Lord in the graveyard, so if I can bring him back, so he'll be a 3800 undestructible, and I'll have those two. One's a dark, one's a light. You can't super poly me unless you play Proscidion. And then if I get ashed, the thought process was I have 9 trap cards in my deck. So if I get ashed, my turn doesn't have to end. I set some trap cards, I get a little bit of defense. And then after I was getting bullied by everybody in the hotel room, I was like, I'm just going to play straight gas. Like, if you ash me, I'm playing tactics. I'm going to give myself the opportunity to draw 2 more cards if I don't already have my Patchwork Engine. And I'm going to try to make double Masquerade. And so that's just kind of what I went on. 1,200 is a lot. Making sure your opponent can only activate, 12, 24, 36, 60, 72, 6 card effects under double Masquerade.
Right.
Where they just can't play any other card. You're basically, in that situation, are saying you have to have Dark Ruler no more, or you have to have Forbidden Droplet. Or you can't play. You can't play.
Right.
Like, the rights package alone is like 4 effects. Like, you activate rights, you put Fateful Adventure on the board, you activate Fateful Adventure, you search, you have to summon a card, then you search your Draco back, and then you activate your Draco back, and then you activate the effect of your Draco back. So that's 4 activations under 2 Masquerades. That's 40.
That's not even getting the Omni out. To get the Omni out is another one.
Right. So I just went with huge pressure this weekend. I wanted to just always feel like I put pressure on my opponent, and I didn't want to have to make difficult decisions with the rights package. I didn't want to be in a position in a 14-round tournament where I had to choose between normal summon a Luber or activate rights.
Right. I don't want to take up your entire evening. I know that we've been going on for. Okay, cool. Just making sure. I do have 2 more questions about actual deck build choices. The first is, I see a lot of people cutting the Patchwork Engine. How did you feel about it this weekend?
I did not want to play the Patchwork Engine. I'm not going to lie. I just didn't want to play it. And I just decided to settle on it. And this weekend was great extenders. Because if you get to, like, the most basic play is you end on Mirror Jade with Ad Libitum in hand because you search that off of Tragedy and you have an Eluber on board. But if you have a polymerization with that, you can actually poly the Ad Libitum away and the Eluber away and make a Masquerade and then trigger Ad Libitum to get another monster back on the board. and then still have branded in red. So then you actually can grab the ad libitum back from the graveyard. So having polymerization means you get to resolve ad libitum twice and not just the one time. So that was just like extra gas and extra extender for me. So I don't think the patchwork engine in the game right now is a negotiable. It just gave a lot of gas. It gave a lot of lines of play. And in a fusion deck, you really want lines of play. That's why Invoked was really good, because they gave you so many different fusion monsters, and you could just, there was a fusion monster for each situation. And that's why Shaddolls were good, because they had a bunch of different fusion monsters that gave you access to a different line of play for your deck. So just playing more cards that helped you fusion summon different monsters from your extra deck, I felt like was the move.
Understandable, for sure. I personally like the Patchwork Engine because I like the Fluffle deck, and I've always seen the sheer advantage that it generates. And I'm happy to see it being used, even if it's not in the actual Fluffle deck, but it's okay. Also, I wanted to ask, I noticed that you didn't really run a lot of hand traps. A lot of people in today's meta want to run 10, 12, 14 hand traps. I think you only ran like 6, something like that. And I think the ashes were mostly there for the crossouts. So I was kind of wondering, I think the Mercurier, the one Mercurier is kind of like almost like you said, like a non-negotiable. I think that it just fits in so well with the deck. But I'm just kind of wondering what made you settle on just fewer hand traps.
I didn't want to play more than 41 cards. That's what it came down to. I was like, I know what I have to play, and the cards that I have to play were Ash Blossom, and I was like, well, I think that the mirror match will be prevalent, and so I was like, I'll play Ghost Bell, because also Ghost Bell hits the Enchantress. It hits like 15 or 16 cards. Like, it even hits Flunder, or Fluunderweeze. Like, they're Strix, it banishes a card, and then like you get an additional normal summon. So if you have to, you can stop that. They don't get an additional normal summon. Like, that card is not dead in any matchup. I actually think it's even good against Sword Soul to an extent. Yeah, the Despot. Like, they go to Despot combo you, and they summon Despot from the graveyard. You can just Bell that. So there's always an application for Bell in the meta right now, so I just figured playing those would be good. But to better answer your question, it really came back to, I think my deck had enough gas, and I think I could have broken any board. It was like Super Poly. I played Super Poly, so sometimes if I saw Super Poly, I didn't care what you made. I'm taking your stuff. So it didn't make sense to play a hand trap and then you do the same thing to me that you were going to do. It's just like you ash a branded board on their branded fusion, and their turn essentially ends. Like, everybody knows that. So if they don't have any follow-up, if they don't have a Patchwork Engine or a polymerization, their turn kind of ends and it's lackluster. But if the deck gets the full combo, and I have I could have Ash and I have Super Poly. I'm going to let you full combo. I'm just going to Super Poly you. It doesn't make any sense to waste my Ash in this situation.
Right.
But I felt like Ash and Bell were very powerful, and the bird, the Mercurier, I was like, that's a searchable one of hand trap that it stops every monster effect. Doesn't matter where it activates. Hand, graveyard, banish pile, field, it's going to stop something. So that card was really good. Like, it made me feel safe. Like, when I outed their Mirror Jade and they activate the effect, I just discard Mercurier, and I don't have to worry about my monsters getting nuked at the end phase. It allowed me to commit to the board.
Right.
Yeah, I just wasn't scared. Like, I've played like blind going second decks. I've played decks that don't play hand traps. I got used to the comfortability. I feel like hand traps are a crutch, and I use that. I've been using that word a lot lately because I've kind of gotten like a little hindsight of the game. But the only reason I played any hand trap, so I have to be honest, is for the cross-out target to like give myself a chance to have Branded Fusion resolve, and I'm scared of Sword Soul. Like, that's a deck that, like, you need to have 2 hand traps against that deck, or they will full combo you. It doesn't matter. So I was like, I don't want to play a lot of hand traps because, like, playing sick, because like the chances of me having the right 2 hand traps at the right time against that deck just is never favorable. So I'm just going to cut my losses on it and just play a low amount of hand traps and just play power cards that can bully my opponent out of the game. Opposed to like hoping I have the right combination of hand traps, because like the best way to beat that deck is to have Nib Ogre, and like sometimes that's not even enough, having Nib Ogre. So if that's not enough, it's like I'm starting my turn with 4 cards, and you've got a pretty good board. Like, that doesn't seem very favorable. So I'm going to play engine cards that if my engine cards get stopped, if you don't kill me, I still have follow-up. Like, if my Ash or my Ogre wasn't good enough, it's just an Ogre in the graveyard. It's not going to do anything. My Despia cards in the graveyard, they do stuff. So I just felt like I wanted to play cards that have a better chance of having recursion and a follow-up play.
Sure, that makes a ton of sense. I think that fits best with the Despia deck. It probably fits better with the Despia deck than other decks in the meta right now. I think other things like Prank Kids and Sword Soul, they might keep that high hand trap count, but I think in Despia specifically, it just works so well to play a low hand trap count because when you have that gas, you can just play through whatever you want.
Absolutely.
And also, I think that Despia is also probably the best mid-range deck that we've seen in a long time. I feel like that's a fair assessment, right?
Yes. It was DeBlessin Wilson. So I'm in this group chat with him and a few other of the guys, but like he had played Despia at a regional. The first weekend it was full power, and he didn't do too well with it. And his status was like, so Despia is just kind of some cheeks, huh? It's not very good. And I commented, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's pretty good. And he's like, the deck just doesn't do anything. I'm like, right, it doesn't. Like, the actual deck doesn't do anything. Like, your turn 1 board is subpar, it's mediocre, but the deck's power lies in the follow-up. It's like, it's Solomon great. Like, you made a mediocre board, it wasn't anything crazy, you have 2 monsters on board, and you have a trap card set. You have an Omni-Negate trap card, and you have recursion. And that's what it is. Like, you just kind of do the bare minimum, and if your opponent doesn't solve your follow-up, they are in trouble. That's how you beat the deck. You have to solve the follow-up. And nobody was worried about solving the follow-up. They just wanted to put stuff on the board. And then there was no follow-up.
Right. So that you mentioned that's how you beat the deck, and that kind of leads me into my last thing that I want to ask, which is with the deck being so new, and I don't need you don't need to be giving away your secrets and stuff, but I am kind of wondering if you could give people that maybe don't know exactly the ins and outs of the decks. You say Masquerade, Mirror Jade, Lubellion, and it's a lot of names to keep track of. And I was wondering if you could kind of give maybe like a quick overview of maybe if you're playing against the deck, where you would go about the choke points maybe. And then if they just go full combo, maybe what the end board would look like and how to combat that.
Right. So the most important card you want to stop is Branded Fusion. You don't have the Ash for that, but you have a Monster Negate. The Lubellion. It's a cost to discard, so they lose a card out of the hand. So if you have an Imperm or a Veiler, you would want to Imperm or Veiler that because they lose a card and they have a Fallen of Albaz stuck in the graveyard and they don't get to shuffle Lubellion back in the deck. So then they can't make Mirror Jade. So the only thing they can do is if they already have Branded in Red is Chimera you on your turn. They're going to add back their Tragedy probably, and they're going to use Tragedy, Lubellion, and Aluber to make Chimera. Chimera is going to be Chainlink 1, and Tragedy is going to be Chainlink 2. And they're going to search their Aluber so they have a follow-up for next turn, and they're going to pop 2 cards that you control. And then, so if you had Veiler or Imperm, that's what you would want to do so you don't have to deal with Mirror Jade. Because if you dealt with Mirror Jade and waited to use Imperm on your turn, well, one, you almost never can because they're not going to commit to the Chimera until you put a card on board, so then you can't Imperm anyway, and you can only Veiler on your opponent's turn. The Branded in Red is huge to hit if you have a way to stop them from resolving Branded in Red, you're pretty good, because the average turn 1 is end Mirror Jade and a Branded in Red set. They had a Luber on the board, but they're supposed to send Albion to the graveyard with Mirror Jade and banish their own Aluber and in phase set Branded in Red, which means they can't Mirror Jade you with that on-field Mirror Jade during your turn. So you got to make a play, and if they go to activate Branded in Red and you have a way to stop them from getting their monster back, which they're going to try to ad libitum, so they can banish their Mirror Jade and then special it back off of ad libitum to make it live again, then that is generally enough to beat the deck. You're gonna have to deal with some follow up, but like that's why Sword Soul is so crazy or so scary to me because like that's the board. Like that's the board that you generally end with is a 3,000 monster that on your opponent's turn on average can't banish their card and a set card. And if they deal with the set card and like Mirror Jade has an awesome effect at the end phase, it nukes the board. The problem is Sword Soul's not going to give you the end phase. So that deck is very scary to play against. And then the other choke point, I would say.
Yeah, I've always heard Lubellion and Branded Fusion are like the key ones that you really have to look out for.
Yeah, and Masquerade, like that's a lot of pressure. Playing against good players this weekend, like look at them, like you have to really think. Like you have to do all the math. Like when you're in the moment, staring down, oh, I can only use 6 cards or 6 card effects. Which ones do I get to use before I out this? Like which one? Like how do I do this? It puts a lot of pressure on people very fast, very fast. So it's I would definitely say Masquerade, Branded Fusion, and Branded in Red and Lubellion are the cards that you would like to stop before the game gets out of control. And then, of course, Chimera. But if they're Chimera-ing you, they've done everything else right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for me. Caleb, do you have any more follow-up questions?
No, you pretty much asked everything I was going to ask.
Sorry, I may have jumped in there on you.
Nah, it's cool.
Well, listen, Chris, thank you again so much for taking time out of your probably pretty hectic press run here to come in, chat with us, and talk with us. Congratulations, by the way, on the luxury sponsorship. I did see that. That's awesome.
Yes,
So if people want to find you, I know that you have also put your hands in on the content creation game. Where can people find you? Where can people get their content from you?
I'm on Lofton TCG, Instagram Lofton TCG, and YouTube Lofton TCG, and as well as Metafi now. I have picked up a slot on the coaching roster for Yu-Gi-Oh! I've got some packages on there that you guys can feel free to check out. And I will be taking on students next week after I get back from Mexico. And if you guys have any questions with that, just please feel free to just send me a message and we can go from there.
You heard it here first, folks. If you want to get Metafy coaching from soon-to-be back-to-back YCS champion Chris Lofton, be sure to go ahead and check that out. We will have the link in the description down below. If you could send that to us after we get done here, that'd be great. But thank you, everybody, so much for listening to today's episode. Oh, my goodness. I almost forgot the podcast question of the day. If I forget again, our community is going to murder us. They're going to come find us and murder us. So the one last episode was, how do you feel about Master Duel ban list changes? I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to keep it short because it's been a long episode, but everybody hated it. I'll just be honest. Literally nobody liked the Master Duel ban list.
I didn't see a single person say a single good thing.
I have not played a single game of Master Duel, and I saw it and I go, that is awful for them. That is not the right direction that you wanted to go, the first ban list.
No, in a format with VFD, Orongo, Miniad, Galaxy Tomahawk, and countless other problems, Block Dragon, etc., that was not the list. But yeah, so I'm not going to go through reading every response like I normally do, but it was bad. This week's today's podcast question of the day is, what do you think is the best deck in the meta right now? I am going to be honest, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, Despia feels like it, right? We just spent an entire episode talking about it, and it feels like it's Despia. But I feel like I need more than one weekend. Is that fair? You had an incredulous look on your face, Chris.
So you said in the meta.
Yeah, the best deck right in the meta right now.
I like to look at the meta like Pokemon. Like, Bulbasaur beats Squirtle, Squirtle beats Charmander, Charmander beats Bulbasaur. Like,
fair.
Think of the meta, I think of the whole encompass. And you want to know my honest opinion? What I think the best deck in the meta is?
Yeah.
Sword Soul. I just don't know how to play the deck. I think Sword Soul is the best deck in the meta. Like, I am highly feared of that deck, and the least I have to play, the better. Yeah, no, that deck is scary because there's almost no stopping it. it just feels like there's no stopping it.
In the hands of a good pilot, it is crazy. And the deck takes so much brain power to pilot sometimes. It hurts my head every time I sit down at the table. So, but I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It could be Despia, it could be Prank Kids, it could be Sword Soul. I don't know. Caleb's been bodying me with Dinosaur like over and over because I guess Dinosaur just has like a great Sword Soul matchup. I don't know, but I want to hear everybody's opinions. Let us know what you think. You can find the podcast question today on our Twitter and in our Discord server. Links are, of course, always in the description down below. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast. And until next time, have a good weekend.
Take care, everybody.